All right, welcome. I am very excited to have Christina Dioguardi here today. And Christina and I first met back in 2009 at a music festival in Florence. And then since then, we've collaborated in many different ways. Most recently, we were in the Fiati 5 Woodwind Quintet together. And she is an amazing bassoon player, but is also finishing her PhD in musicology. So I thought it'd be good to have her come on today and tell us a little bit about this amazing work that you're going to hear. So Benjamin Britten is one of my favorite composers. And one of the reasons is that, of course, I love his music, but I'm a horn player and he writes just amazingly well for the horn and has so much great rep out there for us. But why do you, as a musicologist and as a human, why do you like Benjamin Britten's music?
I mean, I've always been a huge fan of Britton, not because he loves the bassoon, because he doesn't really love the bassoon. He doesn't really feature the bassoon very much. So I did not come to know Britten's music as a performer, but I came to know it as someone who was looking at music and also listening to music, right? As an audience member. No one can forget the first time they hear Britton songs, especially, the Serenade for Tenor, Horn, and Strings and his opera. And I mean, it captivates you. And I think that sums up the reason why I love Britton is that he's a human when he composes. Britton is inspired continuously throughout his career by every person that he meets and the people that come in and out of his life. And a lot of them stay there for the duration of time. He is someone who holds those that he loves near, like really, really close to his heart. He is constantly shaping works around people who inspire him and dedicating works for people who have impacted him or for someone whose memory he wants to preserve. And I think what you pointed out, right, his compositions for horn, he had a horn player whom he loved and a tenor whom he loved and wrote this incredible output of music for the two of them that completely encapsulates not only his love for them, but his love for the art form. And how can you not love a composer who puts every single, drip of personal sweat and heartbreak and anguish and emotion and joy into every single work he composes? And that's not an exaggeration. It's incredible to see the circle of thinkers and musicians and other composers that he was working with, right? And to see all of that like summation of talent be expressed in like one person's frame of mind. He really is such an incredible thinker and composer and feeler, like a feeler of human emotion. I know that's a weird way to phrase it, but I can't think of a better way to put Britten's music. He put his whole heart and his whole sense of being into his entire output.
That's great. This is such good advice for the people who've never heard Britten's music. It's a good intro. Someone said I should check out the opera Turn of the Screw because it has, it's a very small orchestra and one of the instruments that's playing is the horn, and the horn part is just absolutely incredible. And so I listened to that and then I was reading about it and it said, well, he had just finished this other piece and was writing something else, and that was Canticle 3. And so can you tell us a little bit more about how Canticle 3 sort of relates to this more of a well-known opera of his, and what will the audience expect to hear in just a few minutes when we perform Canticle 3?
Absolutely. Fun fact, The Turn of the Screw is the only work by Benjamin Britten that I have ever personally played. Maybe one day I'll get to play the War Requiem, who knows? That would be really, really cool. But I was able to play the opera, and it is so incredible to listen to. It's so incredible to experience, right? To watch and to listen to the text. The story is, it's about corruption, right? It's the corruption of innocence, which is another theme that we kind of see pervading Britten's output throughout his lifetime. And when you analyze it from a musicology or a music theory point of view, the techniques that he uses are so structurally sound that it's incredible to see that this thing that sounds like, something effortless that he just threw out of his incredibly creative brain actually has this underpinning that's so prescribed. And so one of those aspects is this theme and variations, right? In which you have a theme or a melody, and then the composer takes that and distorts it in all different ways. Maybe they do it a little slower or a little faster. They turn it upside down or inside out, or, take a little motif of it and then bring it and expand it somewhere else. and creates variations off of that theme. Turn of the Screw is one of the first times we see Britten use theme and variations in large form, and Canticle 3 follows that. So it is also a theme and variations piece. The canticles, which he has several of them, Canticle 3, take one longer text and kind of break that text up into little phrases. And so here, that's what he does with the theme and variations. He kind of intersperses all the lines of text with commentary from the horn and the piano in these little theme and variations sections. So this becomes a technique that he continues to use in this part of his career. So that's kind of why it was important to Britten's output at the time, right? Is that he's starting a new compositional style. He has, a new techniques that he is using in his works going on. He actually has, and I have it written down here, so I don't misquote him, but in an interview, he acknowledges that The Turn of the Screw and Canticle 3, quote, brought him to the threshold of a new musical world, end quote. So he personally states, I've been doing stuff for a while like this, now we're going to do it like this. So it's a marked change in his compositional style. Britten, again, he was not setting texts about, butterflies and unicorns galloping through the gardens. He is setting texts that deal with the reality of human life, with the corruption of innocence, with the destruction of war, with the emotional suffering of loss. There are also moments of happiness too, right? We look at, he has his Songs of Innocence cycle, and he did write a lot about children and what it was like, what it was to be a child. So it's not all like scary, dark, very, emotional writing, but he's choosing texts very consciously. He is choosing texts from authors who he believes in, who he believes has something powerful to say, and who he believes can effectively capture snapshots of human life. And then he tries to do the same with his music.
So this piece uses the text, and it's uses the crucifixion of Christ, but it's really talking about the bombing of Britain. And so obviously that piece had a lot of relevance when he premiered it. But what do you think is some of the connections to why this piece is still relevant now?
Well, I think we all know, right, that the world that we live in right now, we might not be in a labeled World War III right now, but the world that we live in right now is still dealing with quite a bit of hardship and quite a bit of destruction, even if it's not always physical destruction, but destruction of the human psyche and humankind and human emotion, and the feeling that it's hard to find peace and it's hard to find hope. And I think this is where all of Britten's music, but especially Canticle 3, holds its own today, right? Because at the end of the piece, yes, the text is very dark, and he did write it in, the text immediately was written in response to the 1940 air raid, right, on London. And he said it a few years or, a decade or so later. But the music that he's writing stands for today, stands for the fact that no, there might not be air raids happening in London at the moment right now, but there are still destructive elements happening all over the world. But at the end, there's hope. None of Britten's messages are apocalyptic. And to me, that's incredible, because he suffered so much in his life, just from the basic feeling of not belonging as a child all through his formative teen years into early adulthood, the fact that he, lived through the wars and saw physical destruction, right? There's so much hardship, there's so much sadness, but yet he still finds a way to find hope through all of that. And I think this is something that we all have to do today, that we all, right, are experiencing our own form of destruction, whether it be physical or invisible. And we all have to remember there's hope to hold on to, and that the arts are always a way to find that hope.